Welcome to an excerpt from Jihad and the West, Black Flag over Babylon by Mark Silinsky, with a foreword by Sebastian Gorka. It was published by Indiana University Press in Bloomington and Indianapolis. This reading is presented by Kensington Security Consulting, which brings education to national security. This excerpt comes from Chapter 4 and examines life in the Islamic State. Salafist dystopia, life in the state. ISIS is dedicated to a contemporary Holocaust. V.S. Naipaul, March 2015. Earlier chapters detailed the Caliphate's geography, philosophy, origins, and support base. They surveyed tensions between Muslim and non-Muslim communities in the West and observed the lures of the Caliphate. This chapter returns to Mesopotamia and walks the besieged streets of Raqqa, Mosul, and other Caliphate towns to examine the lifestyles of those under the sway of the Islamic State. Daily life. We are afraid to leave our house. They are degrading Islam. Maisa, Raqqa resident. It looked so beautiful, the sisters and I joked around and called it the New York City of Syria. Haritha, Raqqa resident. This is what daily life is like. You wake up in the morning, and if you don't hear the sound of shelling or a jet breaking the sound barrier, you feel like it could be a good day. Abu Hadi, a resident of Raqqa, 2015. Westerners who travel to planet Caliphate find lifestyles very different from those they knew at home. With bodies strewn in the streets, sex slave auctions, public executions, random beatings, and deteriorating infrastructure, Raqqa is unlike anything most Europeans could imagine. Conditions are often worse in rural areas where public services are scarce. Like something out of the Black Death in medieval Europe, rotting corpses are a common sight, and the streets are constantly reeking of the dead. Some conditions are so vile that Caliphate cadre leave, if only temporarily, the towns they conquered because of the stench of decaying corpses. The Caliphate is often very open about its killings. In the 20th century, some states used the fog of war to hide their butcheries. Behind the doors of Moscow's Lubyanka prison or the gates of German concentration camps, Nazis and communists veiled some of their slaughters. Not so the Caliphate. Its leaders bask in their flamboyant cruelty, regularly filming beheadings, shootings, stonings, and other methods of murder, including throwing people off buildings and setting them on fire. From spring 2014 to spring 2016, the Caliphate executed over 4,000 people and often made little attempt to hide the acts. In some parts of the Caliphate, public killings have a circus-like atmosphere. Young boys, sometimes barely taller than the rifles they wield, shoot other boys at point-blank range to the applause of their Caliphate leaders. Smiling, handicapped men in wheelchairs fire into groups of young men accused of spying, a disturbing display of the Caliphate's value of equal opportunity, according to Human Rights Watch. Some infamous centers of brutality have developed their own sobriquets. Raqqa's Central Square has become known as Hell Square, where the state publicly executes people. There was a celebrity torturer known as the Bulldozer or the Monster, who administered Caliphate justice until he was captured. He boasted a fan club of admiring boys and young men. A mammoth of a man, he was the dean of the Caliphate's chopping committee. He amputated hands or feet, sometimes both, and even heads. In April 2016, he killed a man accused of being a magician. The Bulldozer was caught in June 2016, tossed half-naked into the back of a truck and hauled away by Syrian forces. Another pin-up killer emerged in the Caliphate, who, like the Bulldozer, enjoyed celebrity and had a short shelf life. The photogenic Caliphate killer, known as the Desert Lion, is profiled below. Profile 18. Abu Wahib, the Lion of the Desert. Sheikh Wahib, also known as Abu Wahib, was a heartless man, dead at 30, who lived his short life in rage. Born in 1986, the former computer science student savored the brutality he inflicted as a Caliphate leader. He basked in the heroic image his den of Caliphate cubs held of him. He was a tough jihadist, and by his mid-20s he had been arrested by US authorities in Iraq. As part of al-Qaeda, he was captured by US forces in 2006. Later, he escaped from a high-security prison to become a leader in the Islamic State. He became a local celebrity in 2013 after being photographed interrogating 3 Syrian truck drivers by the roadside. He seemingly shot them in the back of the head, prompting speculation about why. Unlike other state soldiers, he often showed his face. He challenged Western fighters to kill him. This vanity, like Jihadi John's, ultimately proved self-destructive. Wahib was al-Baghdadi's personal assistant, and they both survived a US drone strike in Nineveh. But in May 2016, his luck ran out. The Pentagon confirmed he had been killed. A US Department of Defense spokesperson said, on May 6th, a coalition airstrike targeted Abu Wahib. It is dangerous to be an ISIL leader in Iraq and Syria nowadays. The Wanderers. Westerners have heard the Caliphate's call and have come by the thousands. There are 3 basic drives behind the state: utopia, jihad, and psychosocial factors. Black utopia, heaven on earth. I left to build us all a house in heaven. Allah promised us heaven if we sacrifice our world life. I'm not coming back. A London-raised mother, writing from Raqqa, October 2014. Some European foreign fighters go to the Middle East to build a paradise. Well-to-do as well as out-of-luck Western Muslims see limitless prospects in a society they can help create. The world they envision is ordained and described by Allah as the perfect society. It is an Islamic utopia, a heaven on earth. Other religions and civilizations have imagined perfect worlds. In his 1516 masterwork, Thomas More described a fictional island named Utopia, meaning happy land. Its citizens dressed simply, ate communally, and owned no private property. A darker, utopian vision was crafted in the steamy, disease-ridden jungles of Paraguay in 1886. New Germany was to be protected from the contaminants of modernity, materialism, and racial spoliation. But it collapsed, and little remains today but a scattering of German family names and Nordic features in South American jungles. The Islamic State's philosophy bears little resemblance to these societies. However, it shares some characteristics with totalitarian dystopias of the 1930s and 1940s, such as the Soviet Union and the Third Reich. 3 utopias. Like the Soviets and Nazis, today's adherents of the Islamist state view their utopia as free of significant political or social flaws. The Soviets sought to build a workers' paradise with goods and services distributed equally. They saw the world's major defects as the result of the unfair distribution of national and political wealth. The Nazis' paradise was to be built on the foundations of a pseudo-science of race. As with the Soviets, the Nazis envisioned a society in which its citizens would enjoy healthcare, education, nutrition, and wealth. All 3 philosophies are atavistic. Like Marxists and Nazis, jihadists seek to eliminate the roots of war and recreate elements of a largely mythical past. The Caliphate seeks to return to a period of rightly guided Muslims, namely the first generation. Although modern technology is employed, the society would be socially primitive, with all human activity circumscribed by Islamic law and Quranic revelation. A young Indonesian explained, "The Islamic State is like a dream come true for me and all Muslims. Now is the time to return to Islamic glory, like in the old days." The state would provide all the basic necessities for Muslims. All three philosophies are romantic. Nazis hoped to recreate a pure Aryan society, as reflected in German mythology and folklore. Similarly, Marxists hope to recreate a world without private property. Islamists, too, look to a distant, largely imagined past. Jessica Stern and J.M. Berger, writers on terrorism, speak of the Caliphate's hope to return Islam to an imagined ideal of original purity. Harvard's Noah Feldman, a scholar of Islam, adds, "The more medieval the practice, the more they like it." Like the Soviets and the Nazis, the Caliphate views itself as perpetually threatened by internal and external enemies. Yehuda Bauer, a scholar of the Nazi period, notes common elements among other 20th century utopias. All three, Nazis, Stalinists, Islamists, aspired or aspire to rule over the entire world, promising a utopia and an apocalyptic end to history. All three were, or are, genocidal, blogging the life in utopia. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of your own choosing. George Orwell, 1984, 1949. The utopic aspirations of the state's foreign fighters can be gleaned from their blog entries. Blogging is a large part of the Caliphate's information operations. In 2011, before the creation of the Islamic State, a blogger on the Al-Tahadi Islamic Network described utopia as a divine system, the Islamic system, which is completely free of discrimination, injustice, or any social flaws. It is not Arab nor regional, rather, it is Islamic. This captures the utopic goal of the Caliphate today. Freedom is a recurring word in the Caliphate's literature, promised in abundance in the Islamic State. Yet its usage contrasts with the Western understanding of freedom, which generally means the unfettered ability to say, believe, vote, and often behave as one would like. For the Caliphate, freedom is the ability to practice Islam unconstrained and to live in an exclusively Muslim society. This Islamic world has no legally defined borders because it aspires to global dominance. There is no clearly articulated concept of individual freedom in Islamic law or Sharia. The Islamic utopia is predicated on religious conformity. But many of the world's Muslims support a level of religious freedom that would be antithetical to the state. In 2013, a Pew poll found that most Muslims around the world support democracy and say it is a good thing when others are very free to practice their religion. At the same time, many Muslims want religious leaders to have at least some influence in political matters. This concludes a reading from Jihad and the West, Black Flag over Babylon by Mark Silinsky, with a foreword by Sebastian Gorka. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and pressing the like button. Jihad and the West is available for purchase online and in select bookstores worldwide. Dr. Silinsky's latest book, Cauldron of Terror, Hamas, Israel and the World, will be available for purchase in spring 2026. Nothing in this reading or any other reading in Jihad and the West represents the official position of any person or agency of the United States government. On behalf of Kensington Security Consulting, thank you for listening.